Good evening. Hare Krishna, spiritual warriors. Welcome to Spiritual Warriorship, the study of the book Spiritual Warrior by His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. We are in Spiritual Warrior 5, making the mind your best friend. We finished Spiritual Warrior 4, Enemies of the Mind. And as I said, I've just been doing a taste of each of these warrior books. Hopefully, if you didn't have them in the beginning, you may have gotten one or two or all. Krishna.com store has them all. So we're going to continue with Chapter 2 of Spiritual Warrior 5, the importance of short-term goals. And it's hopeful that those of you out there have been following us for a while and have a sense of the importance of what spiritual warriorship is, what it means, and the purpose, concept of Bhakti Tirtha Swami presenting it as, and the first thing is to have a firm foundation in knowing who we really are. And as we've been going through, we've been hearing and being reminded of who we are as eternal spiritual beings, servants of the Lord, and that the Lord is the controller and our very dear friend. So the emphasis is on our spiritual understanding and knowledge. So we're going to keep moving on. As I was going through this, I felt I wanted to have that little introductory because it's that sense of who we are, who God is, our relationship with God, that will help us as we go into the importance of short-term goals. And I like to start with where he started, and again, something from the scriptures. And the main scriptures we've said so many times is Bhagavad Gita, as it is by His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. And again, as I say, if you are interested in this teaching and what we've been saying and the different quotes, and you don't have Bhagavad Gita, you can either order it from Krishna.com, or as I say, they have it in ebook, and you can hear it. So please, it's a wonderful way of getting a sense of that identity. So this chapter starts, and each time I've given you what it says. In the beginning, and this is Krishna speaking, all these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my devotional transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. And we're looking at goals in this chapter. This is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 18. And we had started out with a reminder, a sense of what the gradual progression towards the goal. And any of you who have ever stopped and set goals, you know it's something you just don't, you make a goal and then it doesn't happen that way. It's a process and a progression towards obtaining that goal. So we want to say here that we understand that a devotee ultimately wants to return to the spiritual world as an unalloyed servant of Krishna or God. And I'm hoping, as I said, as I'm reading I can't try to figure out where your mind or where your consciousness is. So I'm going to give it to you as Bhakti Tirtha Swami is giving, and we'll make commentary along the way. And it's just to open yourself to receive, because as we say, there's no accidents, no coincidence. Krishna is the arranger of everything. So whoever is out there hearing, this is a part of your process for your spiritual growth. So ultimately, a devotee wants to return to the spiritual world. Why? Because we know this world is not our home. And return as an unalloyed servant of Krishna or God. Why? Because that's the knowledge we have gained, that we are. Our eternal position is servant of God. So we should consider the importance of short-term goals as we gradually progress toward our ultimate goal. And what is our ultimate goal? Love of God. And, of course, returning home to Him. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, once more, 934, the Supreme Lord tells us the ultimate goal. And that really entails always thinking of Him. This is what He says in Bhagavad Gita 934. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. And that, we're talking about ultimate goals. So we want to move along and see how we can work through that. Bhakti Tirtha Swami reminds us that God knows that many souls cannot practice these tenets, the 9 processes of devotional service. But He's so kind that He tells us to work for Him. If you can't do the goals, the services as listed in Srimad Bhagavatam, He tells us to work for Him, or to help those who always follow the process. And if we cannot always think of the Lord or follow the process of sadhana bhakti, we should facilitate those who can follow the process by working for the Lord as a team player. So you may not be able to be strict with your bhakti yoga or your sadhana, but you can associate with those who are. He says, even if we cannot work for God or help the practicing devotee, He still does not turn us away or consider us hopeless. Rather, He tells us to do our work to the best of our ability, while remaining detached from the results. Okay? Constant meditation on God means that we will worship Him in full absorption and allow Him to work through us. At this stage, we will be fully in touch with the Lord due to the absence of false ego, which manifests as fear, anger, envy, lust, greed, intoxication, madness, etc. So if we do not have the full ability to present our minds to God and receive Him in full, He gives us ways which we can still gradually move towards Him and remain under His general care. And this is what he says. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Partha. So whether we think of the Lord fully, engage in other processes, or simply resort to atheism or impersonalism, we still remain on the Lord's path. And he reciprocates with us according to our thoughts and actions. So if you're hearing this and you're saying, oh, how will I get there, out of this ultimate goal you're talking about? The Lord is within our hearts. He's within everybody's heart. And if for a flicker of a moment you desire to know him and maybe worship him as being described in the scriptures, he'll reciprocate and get you in the position, in the right place, at the right time, with the right people, so that you can begin to set your short-term goals towards reaching what we call the ultimate goal. I want to get back to continue where we left off. Okay, tonight we are to begin with evaluate the goal. Okay. Yeah, this is where we'll begin. Now, I had made some notes about goal setting too, and goal setting is a part of our life if you want to bring some balance even in your material life. If you're in school or you want a certain profession or a certain study, you set a goal that you know you may have to go to school in order to do that. And then it's a process of choosing the right school, and you do the research on what school offers what based on what you desire. And you begin your planning, you get the school, you get the brochure, a bulletin, you call, you see, it's a process. And then you choose the school and you go and register and get your classes and all. And even on another level in mundane life, you're planning a vacation to this very, I don't know, to maybe an island or something, or a very exotic place. And you start early, short-term goals. Next year when I get my vacation, I want to go to there. And what do? You make sure you start saving so you can get your ticket. You get pictures in your mind of how you're going to dress and when you go, or who you're going to travel with. So again, in that aspect, you're setting goals. And they're short-term goals because, yes, you want to go to that island, but you can't just get there from where you are at the moment. You have to plan, set goals of how to save, how to, get your ticket on time and where you're going to stay when you get there. So what about your spiritual life? This is what we're saying here. In the spiritual life, there is an ultimate goal, which we said at the beginning. And in this particular spiritual life, that ultimate goal is love of God, purification, to go back to the spiritual world from whence we came and serve the Lord. But we have to start serving here. So spiritual life is important. And if you're following spiritual warriorship, I'm sure by now you have a sense of its importance, and yet you're being given instructions of how to move there. So he says, evaluate the goal. In order to avoid pursuing inauthentic goals or goals that we have no desire to reach, we must first identify each goal we want to seek in our lives, and then identify the process which can help us to reach that goal. Now, if we want to make a quick evaluation of any teaching, or philosophy, we can ask this simple but significant question. And it is, what is the ultimate goal that a person can attain if he or she properly follows this process? Every theology, philosophy, or religion has some specific goal that people can attain if they reach perfection in that process. This brought back to my mind my coming to Krishna consciousness. I had, during my years of searching for God, if you will, I had been to many different organizations and teachings. And as we said, the Lord is in the heart, and every time I got to one, it just seemed, oh, this seems good, this is talking about God and all. I always got like a signal from inside that there's more. But I did want to know. I remember at one point my statement was, I just want to know God. And somehow, based on that desire, deep prayer, I was led to His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And having a teacher or a guide is very important in your spiritual life. And one who is an example of having lived and practiced, as we're going to see with these goals. But what is the ultimate goal a person can attain if he or she properly follows the process? Well, when I came, it was the Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology. And I was hearing about consciousness and back to Godhead. But I remember at a lecture of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, when he said, I don't remember anything else in that talk except when I heard, you can see God face to face this lifetime. And when those words were spoken, the tears was just rolling out of my eyes. And the only thing my realization was, this is something my soul was waiting to hear. And I continued going to the lectures and hearing more. So, for me, at that moment, the ultimate goal that I can attain was that I could see God this lifetime and know God this lifetime, which of course was important because my prayer was, I just want to know God. So you really, as you get into a teaching of philosophy, what is your desire? What is inside? Because that is what brings you to where you are. He goes on. Every theology, philosophy, or religion has some specific goal that people can attain if they reach perfection in that process. That's the progressive step. Whether one wants to create heaven on earth, experience the energies of the Lord, develop mystic powers, go to paradise, or go to Vrindavan, the spiritual world, each process has specific requirements. Most importantly, the aspirant must have a certain consciousness associated with the desired goal in order to reach the end. So that your consciousness is important. What's going on inside? What's your internal dialogue? We can even go back to what we've studied before. Sometimes people ask, do not all theologies and philosophies lead to the same goal? if we carefully look at the goals of various processes, we may discover that they do in fact offer different goals and destinations. Why should a person study in a university of one type for one type of degree and then expect to get another degree at the end? You just don't. You know what you want, your goal is why you go to that particular university. If a person wants certification in a particular area and sufficiently passes the course, he or she will receive a degree according to that particular discipline. Considering this fact, a person should make the proper inquiry before entering into a discipline by asking, what degree can I receive if I pass all the courses in this particular area of study? Just as we make these evaluations in academia and in other aspects of material life, we should certainly make this important evaluation in spiritual life. I just had another flashback. It's interesting how, as you read, and I think he really clarifies and helps you to see. A person should make the proper inquiries before entering into a discipline by asking, what degree can I receive if I pass all the courses in this particular area of study? I'm just remembering what happened to me when I went back to school after my children were in college, and I was studying, started out studying medical lab technology, and I went to a 2-year community college, and well, it took me about 5 years to get out of there, but I did finish, and I got an associate's degree. But what happened when I started out, the idea of going for a degree was so that with the degree I could earn more money on the job. I worked in a lab. But it took me so long to get the degree that by the time I got the degree, by increments, my salary had gone up anyway. And if my goal then was to make more money, I had to go for a higher degree, which would be a bachelor's degree. So I decided I would go for a bachelor's. And that was another time my mind, because by the time I got that associate's, I was 50 years old, I remember. Because I think my mind started saying, you're going to more school, you're 50 years old. And I decided to argue with it, so what does that mean? So I did. I transferred to a 4-year college in New York City, Hunter College, and went to a curriculum advisor and everything. And I thought I was transferring to a bachelor's degree program in medical lab technology, because I had heard there was such a program. So I registered, I got my program, and I began, and there I was, what was it, in the chemistry lab, and I don't know, the physics lab. I was in, when I went and asked somebody what my course, because the young folks were saying, are you going to medical school? And I said no, and they wanted to know why was I struggling with all this science. And I went to find out I was in a science, I forgot now, it's so long ago. But my major was science and my minor was a science, and it was like, what am I doing here? What about the bachelor's for medical lab? Oh, that's at the other, you should have gone. So this statement here, I did not investigate. I just knew I wanted a bachelor's degree so I could earn more money, and that apparently, that was my goal. But I didn't check the process. So he's saying here, even in spiritual life, you want to find out what that study will entail. That was quite a, whew, I'm almost remembering the nights of homework at chemistry in the lab and all of that. Just as we make these evaluations in academia and in other aspects of material life, because we do sort of check things out, we should certainly make this important evaluation in spiritual life. Some people might even feel shocked and uncomfortable when they find out the goal of their particular alignment. However, if the goal suits them, they should ask a second question. What do I need to do to acquire this goal? Even if some people are not ready to fully embrace the necessary rules and regulations, the mere recognition of such requirements can help them move in the proper direction. At least they will keep the ultimate goal in mind in spite of their inability to fully adapt all the practices. Now, for me, when I came to this ancient Vedic teaching, and I heard Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and I felt by what I heard that this was where I was to be, and knew that that's what I would like to experience, just as I said, from his statement in the class, and I had been starting to read Bhagavad Gita. So when I heard the principles by which the teaching was based on in order to achieve that goal, ultimate goal, of no meat eating, no meat, fish, or eggs, and no intoxicants, no illicit sex, no gambling. Well, at that stage in my life, it was like all I wanted was God. That's not a problem. But interestingly, there was one little area when, because we eat, we only eat what's offered to the Lord, and it was stated that we don't offer onions and garlic to the Lord, so therefore, no onions and garlic. And I remember this devotee coming in, said she had a lot of trouble. But again, what I found, I was so, determined or desirous of grasping this ultimate goal, if you will, that didn't matter. I just wanted, what else do I need to do in order to reach that goal? So it was a strong desire in me. He says, in this case, the person can do the best that they can in order to come as close to that goal as possible. So maybe, you're interested in the teaching and it does have these restrictions. It doesn't mean maybe that you go vegetarian overnight. It's very difficult for some people. But you begin to set goals and maybe cut back on because what happened to me when I went vegetarian, for me somehow being vegetarian was just not eating red meat. I think I used to eat little fish every now and then, and to me that's fish, it's not meat. And I remember going to a spiritual group and they said something about strict vegetarian. And it was like, oh my God, that's right. And that's when I even stopped eating eggs and realized what strict meant. But again, if that's where you want to be, when you hear what's required, you go along because it's important. It has a goal that you can reach by following. He says, however, if you do not want that goal, then you should involve yourselves in another system that will help you acquire your desired goal. Now, if the person does not want the goal, if the person does want the goal and can follow the process to a certain degree, he or she should ask a third question. And that is, have the serious followers of the process attained the goal? And if so, what have they achieved? We should study the people who have already reached the goal, because ultimately we will expect to have similar experiences and qualities when we attain the goal. Now there again, my experience hearing this and reflecting back and remembering some of the studies we've been through, that desire for wanting God, because in the beginning he was in Washington, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and had the institute and was preaching, and a lot of people were coming in, nice people. And then I met some of the people who had been with him a while, and of course when I heard the goal, and I started reading Bhagavad Gita, my eyes just opened. Oh wow, yeah, how do I get there? And it appeared to me that some of the folks weren't showing an example of what could be achieved by following the goal. But what I realized, that desire to know God and my trust in my teacher, which encouraged my trust in God, Krishna, kept me going, because I still felt that this was the place to attain that goal. So sometimes you go to a temple or place and you said you like what you hear, as it says, and maybe even when you find out what you need to acquire, there may be little conflict or confusion, but you have to keep your eye on the goal and know that whatever's happening, again, is really a challenge and a test to get you to fulfill that goal. And those who've been with us, if you remember, what was it in, Spiritual Warrior 2, when we went through challenges, and he spells it out very nicely, how we are tested as we are moving ahead in our spiritual life. And that's what this is all about. So it says, if we find a goal that suits us, but do not have the capacity to follow the process, we need to understand that we will not reach the goal until we can properly follow the practices. If we really do want a certain goal, it means that in time we will try to position ourselves to follow all the necessary requirements. On the other hand, if we do not want to do the necessary, we really need to honestly ask ourselves if we actually want that goal. In some cases, we may not want the ultimate. Remember, that word is an ultimate goal. And should honestly find a different path to follow along with its necessary practices. However, we may never want to take all the necessary steps to acquire a certain goal, which means that we should find a process that we can follow and then pursue the goal genuinely. So this, again, is important why having a spiritual mentor, spiritual guide, so that if you are not quite sure, it seems to that you have someone to talk to and to discuss. And has been said in other points in different sections, association is important. In fact, if you remember when we studied the mastery of the mind, that was the first step in controlling the senses and mastering the mind, is to be aware of your association. You want to be with people who are also seeking or have set goals for a spiritual life or higher. And then you won't feel totally out there. But my experience has been, when there's a strong desire, somehow Krishna, God, opens the door or brings the right person when you think you're going to walk away or you're out there by yourself, and you're really never by yourself. So this next suggestion is, find a project. After understanding the type of goal we wish to pursue, we want to strategize and find ways to maintain our enthusiasm. If we examine our lives, we will discover that we feel happiest in our spiritual journey when we fully absorb our minds in a project or plan as an offering. We may serve in so many various ways, but as we meditate on our offering while remembering our position as devotees, and what is that? Servant of the Lord. And we've gotten that from way back. When we first started, he keeps reminding us who we really are. When we may serve in many various ways, but as we meditate on our offering while remembering our position as devotees, we will have the ability to harness the mind. He says, I find that when I do not focus my mind on a specific goal, my mind becomes crazy or goes all over the place. And we know that can happen. This constant fluctuation can cause one to feel very insignificant, depressed, angry, or lonely, because the mind has this tendency. At times, when you do have a plan or goal that enthuses you, it will energize you to the point that you accomplish far more. And that, it's interesting, I feel is kind of happening in my life right now. I just kind of laid back for a while. You know, I'm having trouble with my back and body, material body in this material world. And I'm just moving slowly and going to physical therapy and everything. And recently got a notice that a god brother of ours who has gotten sannyasi initiation, His Holiness Bhakti Vasudev Maharaj, Swami Maharaj, is coming to visit us. We invited him to come visit us in Adlachu, and he agreed. So it was all of a sudden, I had a goal. I had to check airplane tickets, when he's coming, what's the best days, check with him. And I tell you, I just almost forgot about this aching body, because I was getting there, talking to the devotees here, you know, what dates, and writing to him what's best for you, and checking with the temple what programs we could set up. And it does energize you. That you accomplish far more. And it's been a busy week. There were moments of frustration, I'll tell you that. And yet, I'm so thankful having reading and studying these spiritual warrior books that when I would reach that point of what's happening next, or why is that devotee doing that or saying that or acting that way, and I would remember. And one exchange, I remembered the whole thing. Remember about personalities. What is it? Looking for love. If you're not getting along, and you got to really try to be more loving. And that's what I started working on myself. Maybe I'm not loving enough. How can I speak to her, or what can I say? So these studies have been miracles for me as each day comes and each experience, and I hope any of you who have been following and are reading and study have found them helpful. He goes on that each person's project will differ. For instance, a devotee in a temple or monastic environment may ask, what is the goal for a person living in the temple who does not have a spouse or children and simply engages in monastic services? In this case, the goal may not deal directly with the material energy, but may revolve around the person's daily services. For example, the devotee can decide to read volumes of scriptures in a period of 6 months, or try to organize various improvements for the monastery and for his or her personal life by the end of the year. We should select a goal in which we can place all our energies. In this way, we will feel more excited about the spiritual journey because we will have the means to work towards this goal on a daily basis. Again, I just remembered in my coming into this teaching, and I began hearing about going back to the spiritual world, going back to Godhead, and you have to do devotional service, and I got into service, you believe it, and I had a goal. I wanted to do this service, I wanted to do it right because I wanted to get back to the spiritual world, but that was a goal. But what I found, there was excitement, I was energized, I was enthused. And when I talked to my friends who maybe I hadn't talked to, this spiritual life is so exciting. Because it was like you just wanted to serve and find things to serve. And he's talking here about projects and service. So if your spiritual life is a little, think about what we're saying here and find that enthusiasm and that energy, because the Lord reciprocates. It is too dangerous to just let the mind loose. Since our mind and our environments constantly challenge and threaten us, we have to remain alert and develop more power within ourselves if we want to have the ability to reach the ultimate goal. He keeps reminding us, ultimate goal. We mustn't forget what our goal is as spiritual beings here in this material world. We need to examine our lives more closely. When you're planning for events and projects, life becomes much richer for you. However, notice the effects on the mind when you simply move through daily rituals. Although you may live in or visit the temple, monastery, church, mosque, or synagogue for worship, you will not feel happy unless you can identify with particular pursuits that you want to accomplish as a part of your life. Considering the power of the mind, we somewhat have to trick it in order to engage it in devotional culture. If we do not engage it, it will engage us. And what I made a discovery recently in having the experience of detachment, if you will, from a focus of my mind on some material. When you're focused like that, you don't feel too good. You feel heavy. And that mind, as he says, is running around, engaging you in lamenting and worry. But I learned, the experience was, when they hear about detachment, to let go of that material and attach to the spiritual or serving the Lord. And for me at this time, my main service is chanting the holy name, because that's service. And what I realized is that the detachment and attachment are the same. It's just a shift in your consciousness. So if that mind is, it says, if it's not engaged, it'll engage us. But if we're mindful and aware, we must be alert, as he said here, as to what's going on. And you can tell what's going on, you can tell how you feel. So he says, once when I was a part of a special program involved in distributing my spiritual master's books to museums, libraries, universities, and professors, our team went to our spiritual mentor with our pens and pencil in order to get very specific instructions on how to distribute his books. We were prepared to receive very specific and elaborate instruction that would help us reach our goal. However, my spiritual mentor simply told us, just do your best and Krishna will help you. At times when we receive a general instruction, we have the responsibility to imbibe it and apply it specifically to our particular goal. Although the instruction may seem simple or general, if it is an empowered instruction and we accept it, we will attain great success. That's why reading your Bhagavad Gita, a verse a day, a page a day, one place I think it said a chapter a day, those verses are given by Krishna, the Lord himself, and they are instructions to us. And if we imbibe them and practice them, we will definitely see changes in our lives and know that we are moving towards the goal, as long as that goal we have made is for transcendental and approaching, reconnecting our relationship, reviving our relationship with the Lord. So he said the team accepted this simple instruction, and we later obtained success beyond our imagination. We had several creative, intelligent men on our team, so we each set short-term goals and strategies to facilitate us in accomplishing longer-term goals. Just take some time, Ethan, to examine your own propensities in order to discover the activities that enthuse you. Take some time. Examine your own propensities in order to discover the activities that enthuse you. What enlivens and excites you in your spiritual practices? Write that down, put it somewhere. What enlivens and incites you in your spiritual practices? By pushing yourself in certain ways to achieve these personal goals, you will feel happier. Once again, put the book away for a day. Write down some of your short-term personal goals and your plans to accomplish them. So those are instructions. What did he just say about following instructions? Simply follow the instructions. And I think we've covered some nice areas as far as setting goals, the questions to ask. So I'm asking now, are there any questions or comments on what we have discussed or covered tonight or last week? No questions? Somebody asked me, who am I looking at when I turn? I'm looking at my technician who's in front of the computer and in front of the chat room, and she sees what's coming in, because I couldn't look at the computer and talk to you. I don't feel I could do that. So anything coming in? No? Anybody out there? Yeah? Okay. Okay, well, you've been given an assignment. Do you remember what it is? Examine your own propensities in order to discover the activities that enthuse you. And think about, write down what enlivens and excites you in your spiritual practices. And he says, pushing yourself in certain ways to achieve these personal goals, you will feel happier. And doesn't everybody want to be happier? And that happiness comes from looking within and knowing that we have a goal, ultimate goal of love of God, and we're now in a process of acquiring that. And I think Bhakti Tirtha Swami has been giving us tools and technologies in order to do that. So, anybody want to say yes, Haribo?
Can you define what is spiritual life? What is spiritual life?
What is spiritual life?
Yeah, what is spiritual life?
What is spiritual life? Anybody want to answer that?
As a
okay,
spiritual or material, as opposed to material life.
Okay. In Bhagavad Gita, in the very beginning, when Arjuna, most of you may know the story, doesn't want to, he's on the battlefield, and he's in the battle, and he knows he has to get out there and kill his cousin, his grandfather, all these people. And he comes to Krishna, who's his chariot driver, and he's lamenting, I don't want to go out there and kill those people. If I kill, this will happen, that'll happen, and if the war, they win, and then there'll be women without husbands and children without fathers. He was real, and he put some what appeared to be realistic questions to Krishna. Till he was saying, my body is trembling, I won't fight. And Krishna says to him, you call yourself an intelligent person, but you don't know the difference between material and spiritual. And he goes on, and we understand material is temporary. Spirit is eternal. And he goes in that chapter discussing the spirit soul, which is a part of him that can't be shot, it can't be drowned, it can't be beat up. And I like to tell people it can't be insulted. When we get offended that somebody, she said this to me, he said that to me, and I'm not going to let it. We're dealing with the false ego or the material aspect, because when we know who we are, spirit, soul, and that's part of God, then you begin to have a different sense of yourself when somebody comes, and if it's your spiritual identity, you're not going to be disturbed. If it's your material identity, you're going to want to fight back or something. And this is the process, and this is why even what we're discussing now, the process of short-term goals to strengthen your spiritual life, which is beyond the material. But you're in the world, what Jesus says, in the world but not of the world. So spiritual life is higher consciousness, a deeper understanding of who you are, who God is, and your relationship with God. Material is thinking that you own everything and that this material world is here for you to conquer and rule over and dig her up and burn her down, whichever way. So, does that make sense? Spiritual. And your spiritual life is to bring you to what we were talking about tonight, the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal being to love God and go back home, purifying oneself to go back to the spiritual world from whence we came. It could go into the miseries of the material world, but it's getting late, and so go read your Bhagavad Gita or listen to it on Krishna.com. Hopefully this has been helpful. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, a few guests say great class, and the other one says they offer their obeisances and thanks for a wonderful class.
Any names?
Yes, Bhuvan Mohan says he offers his obeisances. Shruti, a guest named Shruti, says great class.
Where is she? Is she Shruti?
Shruti.
Shruti?
Shruti.
Where's this person? Could you tell us? I'd like to know where you're watching from. That's my sense gratification, if you don't mind. And thank you for your thank you.
And Kremlin says, I'm very happy and rewarded to see my high school students achieve their academic goals and do well in college.
Okay. And then you help them set some spiritual goals, right?
Shruti, I'm watching from the Midwest.
The Midwest. Okay. Where's the Midwest? Midwest. What's the state in the Midwest? I don't have a map. Geography. Forgive me. But I'm happy you're
Illinois.
there. Illinois. All right. Very nice. Thank you for watching. Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you for being there. I say Hare Krishna. Good night. Until we meet again next week. Don't forget, you have an assignment. Hare Krishna.